Welcome to Cozy Nightmares. This is the place where dreams and darkness intertwine, where ancient woods whisper secrets and forgotten memories glow faintly like candles in the night. Each week, we tell you a tale made for the twilight, a bedtime story that comforts as much as it chills. Tonight's story is called The Candlekeeper of Witherwood. It's about a village swallowed by silence, a girl who collects lost memories, and the secrets that flicker between flame and shadow. So wrap yourself in a blanket, let the wind outside stay outside, and close your eyes. The woods are waiting.
There was once a village cradled between two hills and shaded by an ancient forest. Witherwood, they called it, a place untouched by time. The air was always a little cooler there, the moon just a bit brighter. Birds didn't sing much, and the trees leaned a little too close to the edge of the cobblestone roads. Witherwood wasn't on any map. It had no inn, no visitors, and no memory of ever needing either, but the people were kind, quiet, always whispering, always watching the woods. Every home had candles, not just for light, but for remembrance. If you asked someone why they lit them, they might hesitate, then smile and say, "It's just tradition." There was one rule in Witherwood: never go beyond the moss line after dark. The moss line was a thick border of dark green moss that separated the village path from the wilder forest. No fence, no wall, just moss. And everyone obeyed the rule, until someone didn't. His name was Elric, the baker's son. Curious, sharp-eyed, and just turned 10. He followed a bird past the moss line one cloudy evening and never returned. The search lasted 3 days. No trace, not even a footprint, just the wind, whistling low through the trees. But on the third night, his mother brought a candle to the edge of the woods. She lit it and waited. Alira lived in a crooked cottage at the very edge of Witherwood. Her windows were always fogged. Her shelves were full of books older than the village itself, and candles, dozens, maybe hundreds of them. She didn't sell them, didn't burn them for warmth. She listened to them. Alira could hear memories in flame, not voices, not images, just flickers of moments. And if the candle belonged to someone missing, truly missing, she could see their last memory. No one knew how, not even her. When Elric disappeared, his mother gave her his favorite candle, short, lopsided. It smelled faintly of cinnamon. Alira lit it. The flame shimmered, bent sideways, and she saw Elric running, the forest blurring. A shadow, no, a figure, tall and wrapped in moss. A hand outstretched. Then darkness. The flame sputtered, then went still. Alira added the candle to her shelf. Over time, others came. A shepherd's daughter, a wandering herb collector, a mute boy from the eastern fields. One by one, their families brought candles. One by one, Alira watched. But one evening, a candle lit itself. It was a thin black candle, unlabeled, unclaimed. Alira found it burning on her shelf. She stared at it, heart pounding. The flame was wrong, too steady, too cold. She saw herself in the woods, barefoot, drenched, calling to someone she couldn't see, and something calling back. She stumbled back. The vision vanished. The flame snapped out. Had she gone beyond the moss line before? She had no memory of it. She began to dream of a circle of stones deep in the forest, a voice whispering from beneath the roots, a bargain made, a name she couldn't remember. Each morning she woke colder, More candles burned overnight. The village remained silent. The people began forgetting things, their own names, the names of the missing, even the rule, never go beyond the moss lean after dark. They stopped saying it. Only Alira remembered. Alira followed her dreams. The moss line parted like water. The forest was silent. She walked for hours, guided by flickering lights, small willow wisps that didn't burn but glowed blue like old memories. In a clearing stood a ring of stones. Inside it, a woman of bark and ash, eyes glowing like embers. "You're the Candlekeeper," she said. "I made you." The woman told her the truth. Witherwood had once been a village of memory mages, spellbinders who could trap pain, sorrow, even souls into wax. They cast a curse upon themselves to forget their past and live peacefully. But a fail-safe was needed, someone to keep what they couldn't bear. Alira. The candles were not gifts, they were bindings. And now the village was starting to forget even their curse. The witch gave her a choice. Awaken them, or let them vanish into silence forever. Alira returned, lit every candle. One by one, the villagers stopped, looked up, eyes wide. They remembered, but with memory came pain, rage, guilt. The missing returned, crawling from the forest edge, but they weren't whole. The candlelight held them together, barely, wisps of what they were, flickering ghosts of children, parents, lovers. The woods encroached. The village caught fire, not from flame, but from memory. The people screamed, hugged the ones they lost, fled, forgot again, and Alira stayed. She sealed the cottage, shelved the candles, one by one, then lit her own, a memory of herself as a baby, in the arms of a woman made of bark and ash. She whispered, "Sleep, my light." The flame went out. If you ever walk the edge of a forest and see a flicker that shouldn't be there, don't follow it, but do watch. Alira is still there, still keeping the candles, still holding the memories, just in case. The village was hushed, not with sleep, but with waiting. Alira wandered the stone paths at dawn, every window shut, every lantern cold. It had been weeks since the night of fire, when the forest nearly swallowed Witherwood whole. Her cottage still stood at the edge, but even her candles seemed unsure of themselves now. They sputtered, they hissed, they whispered names she didn't recognize. Ash floated through the air some mornings, not from fire, but from memory. The villagers had begun sealing their homes with wax runes, avoiding her gaze. The forest had retreated, but not forgotten. And in that silence, something watched, not with malice, not yet, but with hunger. One morning, Alira found a new candle on her shelf. It was slender, white as bone, and completely unmarked. When she lit it, the flame didn't dance. It swayed, and it sang, not in words, not at first, just a tune, soft, childlike, sorrowful, a lullaby no one in Witherwood remembered, until the 5th time it played. Then came the whisper, "The bell will toll when the forgotten walk." Each night after, the lullaby grew louder, and then the bell rang. It came from deep in the woods, not metal, but bone. Alira followed the sound, and in the distance saw footprints in the mist, small, bare. Someone had crossed the moss line again. He came at dusk, tall, pale, hair the color of burnt wax. His eyes were dull, not empty, but drained. He said nothing for hours. Simply stood outside Alira's gate, holding a candle that did not burn. When he finally spoke, it was in the voice of the wind. I was sent to help you by the one below the roots. He called himself Naren. Carried no memories, no shadow, no past. But when he touched Alira's shoulder, she saw a flash. Herself, older, colder, placing a candle in his hands. He had once been hers. Now he returned. But for what? Naren led her through the woods, past the moss line, past places even the wisps feared. They arrived at a ruin, stones half buried in ivy, windows like broken mouths. Inside the walls were lined with candles, all unlit. Yet from every corner came whispers, speaking her name, but wrong, backwards, drowned. She touched one, it sparked. The voice said, "Keep her burning." In the cellar they found a mirror, but it didn't show reflections. It showed moments. Moments Alira had never lived, but almost did. A life without the candles, without Witherwood. A life free. Upstairs in the attic stood a small figure, a child, perfectly still, skin glossy, eyes closed, made of wax. Alira gasped, and the child opened its eyes. It smiled. "Mother," it said. She backed away, but the child followed, step for step. It mimicked her words, her tone. When she lit a candle, it clapped. When she cried, it whispered lullabies. Naren would not enter the room. "Do not light its flame," he warned. "But it already remembers," the child whispered, grinning, "and memory burns." They left the house that night. The forest grew colder. The path wound downward to a second circle of stones. This one was not like the first. It was broken, cracked, each stone weeping wax like tears. In the center, something buried, a mass of melted candles, bones, and thread. Alira touched the center stone. A rush of visions, not hers, dozens, hundreds, lives that had been erased. This was not a binding circle. It was a grave. The forest had not forgotten. It had buried. Back in her cottage, Alira found an old candle twitching on the shelf. It leaked, but not wax, blood. Thick, warm. She touched it, and a voice shrieked into her mind. A boy's voice, screaming, trapped. "Help me, it's too dark, I can't see." She dug into her shelves. More candles bled, more screams, all from those she thought she had helped. Had she bound them? Had she saved them? What had she become? She returned to the old candlemaker's hut, now ash and soot. But in the cellar, one book survived, bound in waxed bark. It told of a ritual, one that severed memory from soul, a safeguard for those who wished to forget. But it came at a cost. The severed soul must go somewhere, and so the Candlekeeper was born, not as guardian, but as prison. That night, music rose from the trees, not joyful, but hollow, a dirge. Alira stepped outside. The village stood in the square. Every villager held a candle, but their eyes were blank. They moved in a slow circle around the well, round and round, and from the forest more came, shadows, the forgotten, walking, remembering, but not awake, not yet. Alira began to dream. Each night a voice whispered to her, gentle, familiar, and each morning something was gone. Her name, the smell of her mother's hair, the taste of tea. She wrote everything down, but even the ink began to fade. She tried to silence the voice, block it out, but it always found her, until one night it said, "You were never meant to remember." She lit a new candle, pure white, but two flames rose, one gold, one blue, one flickered with warmth, one hissed with cold. Both began to speak. One told her what she needed to hear, one told her the truth. But to choose was to destroy the other. She wept and chose neither. She blew out the flame, and in the dark both voices laughed. The tree in Witherwood Square cracked. A single spark leapt from its roots. Then it burned, blue and gold, sky high. But the bark did not char. Instead, it split, and something stepped out. Not a creature, a memory of the first Candlekeeper. She looked like Alira. She smiled and said, "We all burn in the end." Alira followed an old tunnel beneath the village. There, beneath root and stone, was a market. Silent traders, no faces, no voices. Candles lined the walls, labeled not with names, but feelings, joy, grief, love, terror. And on one shelf, hers, her memories, each priced in wax. She reached for one, and the candle hissed, "Not yet." Then, without warning, every candle went out. Her cottage, the village, the woods, total darkness. The villagers wandered, eyes hollow. The stars vanished. No sound, no whisper. Only one thing burned, deep beneath the stones, a heart, Alira's. She returned to the circle. The witch waited, half soil, half ash. "You came to remember," she said, "but memory is not mercy." The stones glowed. Alira knelt, spoke her name aloud. Not just Alira, but all of it. The name of every soul she had kept. And the forest shook. The village wept, and the candles, all at once, relit. But this time they did not flicker. They stood tall. Alira stood, not just the keeper, but the last one who remembered, and the first who chose not to forget. A soft wind murmured outside Alira's wooden shutters, brushing against the cottage like a child asking to be let in. Candles burned gently on the sill, their glow dancing against glass like warm memories. But one flame had gone out. Alira stirred in bed, the quilt around her tangled, her breath fogged in the cold air. A draft? The warmth had fled, and when she turned toward the fireplace, she gasped. Her shadow was missing, not stretched against the wall, not bent around the hearth, gone. In its place, a set of footprints, burned, charred impressions, still warm, trailing away from her bed and leading to the door, which was ajar. She rose slowly, candle in hand. Each step creaked, old wood warning of something unnatural. Outside, the wood swayed gently, cloaked in blue mist and silence. Then she heard it, her voice, not from her lips, but from somewhere in the trees. "Help me." It was her shadow, speaking, for the first time, and it sounded scared. The trees watched with their silent eyes, knots twisted like skulls in the moonlight. Alira walked the path barefoot, candle flame fluttering like a heartbeat. She followed the footprints, which were now deeper, embedded into stone. She found it, her shadow, standing against a moss-covered boulder. It mirrored her posture, but as she stepped forward, it did not move. It raised its hand, waved, and whispered, "Something's coming. Something that remembers you before you were born." Alira dropped her candle. The flame sputtered, and behind her, deep in the woods, something exhaled. It started with a sound, like water dripping, but thicker. Alira knelt in the woods just outside her cottage, near the old tree she had passed 100 times before. This morning, its bark wept, thick, amber-like tears dripping slowly down its trunk. Curious, she caught one on her fingertip. It shimmered briefly, then sizzled into a whisper. Not a sound. A voice, fleeting like breath. "Where is my daughter?" That night, Alira returned with a jar and a candle, collecting more of the weeping sap. She took it inside, lit a small blue flame beside it, and waited. The jar began to fog. Inside, swirling shapes took form, faces, rooms, a cradle, a woman with gray eyes singing to a child in a language Alira didn't recognize. The trees weren't weeping sap. They were weeping memories, and not their own. The letter arrived wrapped in a dead leaf, delivered by no one. The handwriting was cramped, urgent, soot-stained. "We need you. The flame won't take. The silence is growing. The children forget how to speak. Please, Keeper, come." Alira had only heard whispers of the neighboring village, Meyerholt. It sat low in the marshlands, shrouded in mist, avoided by travelers. She packed lightly, a travel cloak, 6 candles, one for each sense, and one she didn't name. The road to Meyerholt was cold and wet. When she arrived, she found no one outside. Homes were boarded, chimneys black, and above every door, a candle, each one dark. In the village square, a child stood with blank eyes and a wax doll. He did not blink, did not move. But when Alira knelt before him, he whispered, "You're late." Naren was restless. Alira's apprentice, though once timid, had grown bolder. That night, while she was in Meyerholt, he returned to the burned library at the edge of Witherwood. The library had collapsed long ago, but under a stone arch he found it, a single sealed candle. The wax was clear. Inside something pulsed. He held it close. It hummed. Tempted, he warmed it by breath alone until the seal broke. The room filled with whispers, fast, panicked, layered, a lullaby, a warning, a scream. He dropped the candle, and from the wax a woman's voice filled the air. He took her name from her mouth. "Please, let me remember." The voices didn't leave. They followed Naren home. They whispered in his dreams. Alira returned from Meyerholt, shaken. She lit her hearth and tried to sleep, but her dreams unraveled. That night, the forest left her a gift. Outside her window, tangled in brambles, hung a spool of thread, fine as spider silk, dark as crow's wings, and shimmering with moonlight. She touched it, and it sang softly. The thread stitched itself into her fingers painlessly and pulled her outside. Alira followed it to the base of the flamewood tree, the oldest in Witherwood. There she found a candle missing its wick. She threaded the wax with the new strand. It lit, and in the flame she saw the witch, not as a monster, as a woman, alone, sewing a candle from her own heart. Alira gasped. The flame blinked and said, "You carry her name." It appeared overnight, a door, freestanding, no walls, no hinges, just a thick oak slab pressed into the earth outside Alira's garden. At first she ignored it, believing it a trick of the forest. But the next morning it had moved. Closer. By evening it leaned against her cottage, quiet, waiting. She placed her palm upon it. It was warm, carved into the wood, a name, her mother's. Alira lit a candle and stepped through. What she found was not a room, but memory. Her childhood cottage, long since destroyed, rebuilt in dreamlike haze. Her mother humming at the fire, her own voice, young again. But something was wrong. The fire whispered. The walls pulsed. Her mother turned, but had no eyes. Alira ran back through the door. It vanished, but the smell of her mother's perfume lingered for days. Naren found it buried beneath the ash of the old bell tower. A stubby candle, melted low but never extinguished. He tried to snuff it with breath. It flared. He drowned it in water. It steamed, then relit. Alira examined it with worry. "This is a tether," she said, "to something unwilling to rest." That night the candle grew, not in length, but in weight, as if carrying centuries. It whispered names, old names, forgotten kings, condemned witches, a child who never grew up. Alira wrapped it in silk, locked it in the cellar, but in the dark it burned brighter, and the earth around it began to warm. The singing started at dusk. Alira heard it faintly, a chorus of soft, eerie voices rising from beneath the floorboards of her home. Not music, not language, something in between. She lifted a plank. There was only soil, but when she pressed her ear to the ground, she heard them clearer. Light us, remember our names. Naren brought a glass candle infused with lavender and ash root. When lit, the voices harmonized, not in song, but in relief. They were the buried, those who died unnamed, forgotten children, silenced women, lost wanderers. The candle became a memorial, and the song, a lullaby. Alira had never seen it before. A portrait above her mantel, one that had never existed, now hung with careful nails. A girl in a red cloak stood in a field of black flowers. Her eyes were shut. Alira stared, and the girl blinked, not once, repeatedly. Each blink caused the flowers in the painting to wilt further. Witherwood's own fields echoed it, darkening day by day. Alira took the portrait down. Behind it, burned into the wall, were the words, "Do not forget the sleeper. She dreams of fire." She buried the portrait in salt. That night, the girl appeared at her window, eyes open. In the fog, she saw herself, Alira. Same cloak, same stride, same cautious grace. But this version of her moved wrong, too fluid, like something imitating a memory. The double never entered her home, only watched. Naren tried to confront it. It vanished. But the next morning, his hands were stained with wax. Alira wrote to an elder keeper far north. The reply came in a mirror. "She is your echo. From the night you were not born, feed her no flame." But it was too late. Naren had offered it a candle, and now it walked. During the day, Naren discovered it in a locked drawer of the candlekeeper's desk, a parchment blank on both sides, sealed with wax shaped like a crow's foot. When exposed to candlelight, ink began to swirl across its surface, revealing not roads or borders but veins. Alira watched in awe as the map pulsed, forming the outline of Witherwood and something beneath it, a mirrored forest, root for root, path for path. A second Witherwood. The map began bleeding. Naren dropped it, but the parchment clung to his hands. The roots of the map had grown under his skin. It looked ordinary at first, ivory wax, a cotton wick. But when lit, the candle didn't melt. It grew. Each minute, more wax emerged, reforming its structure. Drips pulled upward like slow reverse rainfall. Alira kept it burning for a night. By morning, the candle had grown to the size of a pillar, and around it, time reversed. Withered flowers bloomed, rotten wood repaired. Naren began to speak in nursery rhymes from his childhood, and Alira forgot her name. They extinguished the flame, but it kept growing. She arrived without warning, barefoot, cloaked in gray, her eyes foggy with old light. The girl had no voice, no memory, only a candle clutched in both hands, unlit and cold. Alira took her in. That night, the girl began writing names in soot on the walls, names no one recognized, names that changed each morning. She pointed to one. "Mine," she mouthed. The next night, she crossed it out. "Not mine." Each time she neared the hearth, the flame shrank, until one dawn they refused to rise at all. It came by mail, small wooden clock, hands carved from bone, No numerals on its face, just faint notches. When wound, it didn't tick, it hummed, and as it hummed, Alira's cottage seemed to stretch, walls shifting subtly, windows breathing. Time lost its grip. Tea grew cold before the kettle whistled. Night fell without warning. At midnight, the clock's hand spun backwards fast and feverish, and Naren, aged 10 years in a blink. He screamed, then blinked again, and was 5. Alira buried the clock in stone salt. It still hums. From the caves beneath the Witherwood cliffs came a sound, hollow, melodic, like wind whistling through a flute made of bone. Alira followed the song deep into the earth. The tunnels grew tighter, colder. Candles flickered with each note. She found it, a circle of stones arranged like teeth. In its center, a flute of polished wax. When she lifted it, the tune ceased, then started again, inside her head. The cave pulsed, the walls wept. She dropped the flute and fled, but the song remained, in the trees, in the walls, in her breath. He lived in a mirror, or so the rumor said. Naren discovered him while cleaning the attic, in an old dressing mirror with silver trim. A man in tattered robes, face veiled in shadow, staring back. He didn't move when Naren waved. He spoke when Naren lit a candle. "You're not supposed to see me yet." Alira tried to question the hermit, but the mirror cracked under her gaze. Each shard reflected a different version of the cottage, burning, flooded, empty. Only one showed her asleep, with no face. In the forest's heart, hidden behind a curtain of thorns, Alira found a well, but it did not give water. She lowered a bucket. It came up full of warm, molten wax, pale and luminous, humming with whispers. She cooled it into candles. Each one showed a vision when lit, moments from people long dead, or events that hadn't yet occurred. One candle showed Alira's funeral, another a fire devouring the forest, a third Naren alone in the cottage, older, whispering to no one. I kept the light, even when she didn't return. Buried beneath the floorboards of the candle shop, Naren found a book encased in roots. Its pages were bark, its spine carved bone. Each word had to be coaxed out with fire. Each chapter screamed when turned. It told of a flame that hungered, of a keeper who became fuel, and of a forest that wrote stories into skin. Alira tried to burn the book. The roots howled, and the candle flames flickered in protest. She locked it in the hearth. But each night it whispered a new page. One dawn, the sky cracked, not with thunder, but with silence. Above Witherwood, stars glowed during the day. The sun refused to rise. The clouds drifted downward. Alira watched birds fly below the horizon. Water in the stream flowed upward. The forest was dreaming again. But whose dream was it? Naren drew symbols in the dirt. They glowed, then sank into the earth like stones into a pond. For 3 days, time halted. No one aged, no candles melted. Then suddenly, the dream snapped and left behind a shadow Alira didn't cast. She arrived with dusk, a tall figure in gray veils, trailing plumes of soft, scented smoke. She did not knock. Candles lit themselves in her presence. Shadows bowed. Alira recognized her, though they'd never met. "You carry her flame," the woman said. "Whose?" Alira asked. The woman smiled. "The first keeper, my daughter." She opened her hands, revealing a flame suspended in glass. "Take it, but know this. Once lit, it will never go out, and neither will what follows it." Alira hesitated, then reached forward. The flame flickered and whispered her true name. Every time Alira lit a candle from the eastern drawer, a new scent filled the air, not of flowers or spice, but of memories. One night, fresh parchment and her father's study. Another, Naren's childhood blanket, worn with dust and soot. But one candle, colored pale blue, released no scent. Instead, it made her cry. She didn't know why. The next night, she lit it again. A lullaby echoed in her ears, sung in a voice she hadn't heard in 20 years. Naren screamed when she offered it to him. That's the song they sang at my death. In a clearing she'd never seen before, Alira found a table set for a feast. No guests, no host. Cups filled themselves with crimson. Platters offered steaming, savory scents. But nothing moved, nothing lived. She took one bite of bread and found herself seated, chained by shadows. Ghosts began to appear, her ancestors, the prior keepers, and one figure cloaked in wax, faceless yet smiling. You may keep the fire, it said, but you must feed it. They served her a candle. She woke in her bed, wax on her tongue. Every door in the cottage opened with warmth, except one. It had no handle, no frame, just a flat slab of iron, cold and inert. Naren knocked. It answered. 3 slow thuds from the inside. They tried flame, salt, incantations. Nothing opened it, until the nameless girl placed her candle at its base. The iron glowed. It creaked open, revealing nothing. Not darkness, not light, nothing. Alira reached in. Her arm vanished past the elbow. Then the door slammed shut, and her shadow disappeared for 3 days. It sounded at dawn. A low, hollow whistle from the kitchen shelf. The source? A tiny teal candle wrapped in hair. Alira lit it, and the cottage filled with wind, but no air stirred. The whistle grew into a song, then a scream. Suddenly, windows burst open. Pages flew from books. The flame hissed. When Naren tried to extinguish it, the candle spat wax across his eyes. He saw something not of this world. A tower, he whispered, made of wax and teeth, and something watching. The candle went silent. The wind did not. It began with laughter. Software delighted. Impossible. Alira searched every room. No one. Then came the tiny knocks. Behind panels, beneath floorboards, they called a carpenter. He tore open a wall. Inside, a hollow space filled with melted toys, tiny shoes, and a single bed of straw. And in it, a candle, still burning. When she blew it out, the laughter stopped. So did the warmth in the cottage. Every fire refused to light, until she relit the child's candle. Then a whisper, "Thank you, Mother." Alira needed berries. She left before sunrise. She returned by noon, or so she thought. But Naren was older, the house covered in vines. "You've been gone 3 months," he said. She retraced her steps, walked the same path, timed every turn. Every time she returned older. One time she returned twice. They burned her cloak. Only then did the path relent. But a version of her still walks it, forever circling, lost in a loop of morning mist and remembered fire. It arrived on the window, pale, vast-winged, and covered in markings shaped like eyes. When it fluttered, the cottage shook. Alira caught it in a jar, but each time she closed the lid, a candle died. By the 7th night, only 1 candle remained. She opened the jar. The moth whispered, "You've seen too much," and vanished. The candle relit on its own, but now its flame watched. A circle of burned grass appeared around the cottage, wide, precise, and pulsing with residual heat. Alira couldn't cross it. Naren tried. He returned with eyes full of ash. "You've been marked," he gasped. Marked by what? He didn't know. The nameless girl traced the ring with her bare feet. "The barrier is kindness," she said. So Alira wept beside the edge. offered honey, offered stories, offered song. The ring receded, but a single ember remained. It followed her. A candle wouldn't stay lit, no matter what she tried. Then one night, a hand emerged from the floor and cupped the flame. It stayed burning. The hand never rose higher. It offered no violence, only steadiness. Alira placed a book in its palm. The pages turned. It pointed to a passage. Give flame to what remains unseen. In the cellar she found a door, and behind it, a nursery, empty, except for a single mobile. Spinning, burning, it was time. The mother of smoke returned carrying the glass flame. The last candle, she said. When this burns, the forest decides. Alira hesitated. She kissed Naren's forehead, held the nameless girl's hand, lit the flame. The forest sighed. Candles across Witherwood flared. Every whisper stopped. For a single heartbeat, all was still. Then the flame bent and pointed toward a path Alira had never seen. She stepped forward, not into darkness, but into the next story.